Here we go again. In the forest. Talking about the big things. Asking the big questions. Start with the self before you try to change the world. Clean your room and then leave that buffoon behind. Who are you going to be today? Are you going to be able to connect to the Most High? To keep it in mind when you go throughout your journey of life. You navigate the narrative structure of life. Today I want to talk about control. Control in many forms. I want to talk about control of the self, and I want to talk about how the self is being attempted to be controlled by many forces, both human and spiritual. I think the concept of control is absolutely enormous, and the scope will exceed the length of this video, but I like to think of this self as something which can be under control or out of control. We are at the whim of our many urges. We are creatures of pattern, of ritual, of routine. At the center of all these urges, there is the self, and always in the self is the will to act. This will, this power, can be veiled. And most often, the veils are a result of our connection to our lower urges. Parts of ourself, which although exist, have not found healthy expression, and so manifest themselves in unhealthy ways, which veil the true self, which often knows the behavior which they are partaking in is harmful. I think control is why the concept of the breath is so important in many spiritual disciplines. The breath connects the body to the mind when one takes control of the breath. We are out of control in many ways. Our organs, like our heart and our lungs, can function without us paying much attention to them. And this is because the body knows the human mind is fallible and prone to error. If the body was to give full control to us at all times, we would die, because we would forget to do something as simple as digest, or breathe when we were asleep, or beat our heart. We would simply perish if the body could not run autonomously of the self, of the will. But there are concepts of there are ways to manifest control in the body. The breath, for example. When you start to think about your breath, or you're blinking, you realize that this function, previously independent from thought and will, is now under your control. A lot of people could simply read a sentence, "You are now aware of your breathing," and they would see, they would just begin right then and there to, "Oh God, oh no." But some people enjoy the control, the connection to body, and I think that truly is the most healthy approach. Connect to the body with the breath, with walking, with the senses, listening, feel, touch, sight. Always checking the room, making sure you're not just looking at the screen constantly. Looking at the world outside, screen check. Where are you? Feel your feet, kind of shit. The breath implies a beautiful, oneness of duality. It's like the one breath contains the in and the out. And I think that this is a way that we can connect ourselves to nature. We look at things like coming and going of the seasons, the washing up and peeling back of waves on the shore. The way that day changes to night and night back into day. There are many things in this world that imply this two-ness, the character of two. I think that the psychology of number is a pretty important concept to understand as well. But we can get to that a different time. I think that there's more to say about control and the ways in which we are out of control. Our body, although able to function independently of the self, can sometimes run amok. And, this is the concept of we must kill these parts of ourself. We must burn off the dead wood. Like, there are parts of ourself in our lower realms, in our bodies, which try to claim dominion over more than what is theirs. I know that there is a balance to be struck between physical and spiritual. And when the urges of the flesh begin to manifest themselves in such a way, we got a skier here. He's motoring. That they become unfeasibly, unstoppable. I think that the mind has to somewhat take over. The mind has to say enough is enough. And I like to talk about this as like the fuck it line, where you've had enough. It doesn't matter, like, you can handle no more. This can be a positive or negative thing, but it's when simply the mind, this is often when people say that they enter into an existential crisis. It's like they experience somewhat of an awakening to, a torture of on one level or another. In this way, we're talking about so we can think about that as like physical addictions, like things like drugs, food, sex, alcohol. Like, I think people eventually come to this point where they realize that what they're going through is fucked. It's no longer manageable by the self. It's as if they're out of control. Because what does it mean to be unmanageable? If you have created context for what is natural and created like healthy and positive routines in your life, then you will not be a slave to these lower things. It is not as though that these things are not put on this planet for our enjoyment, but it's very easy to there's a lot of people on this trail. It's very easy to see that these things can manifest themselves in unhealthy ways. In the world of finance, there's a vested interest in the control of lower urges of customers in particular. So wherever money goes, one must be very cautious when one sees something that one didn't ask to see. You know, whether you're on YouTube seeing ads, or driving and you see a billboard, or cable, you see a commercial, Instagram or Snapchat, you see something that's sponsored, you know that that is where money has gone. You know, people with a lot of money want control of your lower urges so that they can make more money. Whether or not there is a nefarious force at play, which I personally do believe is the domain of Satanism, you can see that there's, at very least, financial motivation. Men interested in big business like living absolutely exorbitantly, that completely indulge financially, often lose sight of what's important. Many holy texts talk about giving up what you own, sparing the senses of the pleasurable things in life, and simply going out, the human in nature, you know, away from home, into the wilderness. In the Bible, it says it is easier for a camel to fit through the eye of a needle than it is for a rich man to get into heaven. It says, give alms to the poor, give up all that ye own. The last is a paraphrase, but I find these things very interesting. And if somebody can live off, you know, 20 grand, 60 grand a year, but they find it necessary to indulge in the worldly pleasures of this earth, I think that they eventually realize that they are unhappy inside. A good friend of mine has written, I want to become dirty, stinking rich so I can tell everybody that becoming dirty, stinking rich won't solve your problems. It seems that the more rich people actually have more problems a lot of the time. And I can imagine, I just think of this story of a family member passing away and the kids being divided over who gets what, who gets all the money. I think this is I think there's time for like one last topic here. The shortening of supply chains is one aspect of life that can contribute to having more control over your own life. The way that food companies try to control you is by putting addictive substances into food foods that do not necessitate it. There's so much crap in the grocery store. And I think that if we were all able to grow a little bit of food ourselves and create communities, you know, with buddies, you know, buddy over here has potatoes, this other guy has a chicken coop sort of thing, I think that we could gain at least a little bit of control over our lives again. I'm not necessarily anti-alcohol or anti-drug, but I do vouch for sobriety and against drunkenness. But if we could grow our own, you know, I think it would be better than buying anything from the government. let's talk about the government a little bit, because this walk just got really beautiful, and we might go to 20. I don't know. Why not? The government has always been, there's nothing new under the sun. These are people that want control. I think government in Latin means mind control. Ment, mind, govern, to control. In the Bible, the religion of the land often dominated the religion of higher morality. There was always somewhat of a conflict between, these seemingly devilish religions, like that of Beelzebub or Moloch, and, that of the true religion, like something which is much higher. I think that we can see a lot of metaphor in the Holy Bible if we are open to reading it. The pseudo-historiographical sections, as they are known in academic circles, contain hints of the worship of money, known as something called mammon in the Bible. It is not said that money is the root of all evil, but the love of money. In the text, there are these things also called Baal priests. Baal priests. The men in high courts, which act as representatives of, the world, this demonic force which binds us to the misgivings of the world. Essentially an avatar for Satan. I think that when we look at the resistance of the Jews in the Bible to the Baal priests, we can see the struggle between a spiritual and a physical realm of good and evil, objectively. I think that when we think of good and evil, we again see duality. Just like night and day, there is a place for each. It's like the hand that giveth, the hand that taketh away. If it seems as though control structures in this world are simply hands that giveth, you're missing the hidden hand. If you cannot see ulterior motive when it is plain to the eyes, you're simply not looking. It doesn't take a genius, because we have all, as human beings, been given eyes to see. So, if there's one thing that I could say everybody do to try to gain some control over their awareness, over their bodies, is find some solitude, get off the devices for a little while, get out into nature, move around, use your body, but don't forget to just look, listen, and slow down for a while, because you'd be amazed what you see when you slow down. I think that's everything.